So in the past couple of weeks, my channel has received a good amount of attention from some small atheism-based channels. Well, okay, there were two. But let's be real, that's a lot for a channel that only gets 100 views per week. And that's all cool, like I'm glad that they found my content valuable enough to engage with, but I don't plan on creating any counter-response videos. I'm not really in the business of creating response videos. This channel is about rationally engaging with people of other views, and rational engagement really isn't happening if I'm just throwing arguments at somebody who doesn't really have a chance to respond. It just doesn't make sense for this channel, because it's too easy and it's not really challenging for either side. I think I'd very much prefer things like live stream debates and video collaborations and things like that. That being said, stay tuned for my first response video. Just watch, it's not what you think. What's up everybody, I'm Josh and welcome to Christian Sophistry, taking apologetics to the next level. And if you're new here and you want to engage in this conversation, think about hitting that subscribe button down below and the bell notification so you don't miss anything. So, this weekend, JaclynGlenn, who is a relatively well-known atheist YouTuber who I've been a fan of for about 3 years now, came out with a response video to a Fox News segment on the Vegas shooting that pretty clearly demonizes atheists. And I agree with most of what she had to say in this video. Wow, a Christian agreeing with an atheist? That can't happen. Okay, look, atheists are not wrong by virtue of being atheists. We can disagree with them on big points that we have differences on, but you are allowed to agree with them. Especially when they're pointing out areas where Christians are being dirtbags and alienating human beings as if they were less than you are. Now, I'm not going to agree with Jaclyn on every point here, but the main point of this video is to affirm the fact that Jaclyn has a pretty good reason to be upset here and raise an issue, even from a Christian standpoint. Let's get started.
Boo! I'm an atheist! The most terrifying thing ever! This is my Halloween costume this year. You guys like it? Mean, scary atheists with no morals. How could you be a good person without the Bible, without some kind of moral compass to point you in the direction of good?
Okay, so Jaclyn does misunderstand the theological argument of Christian moral epistemology, but in a minute here, you'll see why.
You mentioned religion. We all have our cross to bear, right? We all are sinners, and we fall short. This guy, his brother said, did not have a religion in his life. You wear your cross. I heard you last night say you went to St. Patrick's to pray. There were a lot of people there lighting candles and praying.
You went to church and you're wearing a cross, so you're a good person. Whereas this man who killed all of these people did not have Jesus. He's a bad person. You see? Religion? Good person. No religion? Mass murderer. Later in this segment, they try to say that they're not intending to apply a blanket statement of immorality to atheists and that not all atheists are these crazy mass murderers. But I'm sorry, how else do you interpret what they just said? They're very clearly trying to say good people go to church and pray and wear crosses, and people who don't have God kill people. That is the message they are trying to send.
There should be way more Christians calling Laura Ingraham out for the damage that she is doing to her own worldview. Like, does she actually think that she's gonna be convincing anybody into the Christian worldview by acting this way? Or even convince atheists out of their view, for that matter? Why aren't there more Christians that are pointing this out? My guess is probably because there are way too many Christians that actually think that this representation of Christian beliefs is legitimately and theologically true. So, for those of us that don't understand Christian theology, let me go ahead and set the record straight. Christianity does not teach that Christians are inherently morally superior to non-Christians. And I already know that some of you will be like, oh, what about Romans 1? Oh, what about Romans 1? If only I've already done a video about the misinterpretation of Romans 1. Link will be up in the YouTube cards. No, actually, Christianity teaches that all human beings are made in the image of God and innately know good and bad. 9 out of 10 Christians will accept this doctrine as a rational understanding of how all human beings know good. Also, all human beings have been affected by sin, and therefore Christians are just as screwed up as atheists are. Except Christians do have this special religious way of acting in evil when they act as if they're superior to everybody else. I think Pastor Douglas Wilson explains it best in a back and forth between the late Christopher Hitchens.
I'm not debating with you over whether atheists can be good neighbors.
No, for instance, though.
I'm not debating with you over whether atheists can do good things, whether atheists can affirm the same values that Christians do. I acknowledge that they do. I share many of your values. Many of the things that you reprobate, I also do. I enjoy reading a lot of your denunciations because I agree with them. I think you have a very fine house with no foundation. You don't have, it's just sand under there. I want to know not what you denounce, but why you denounce it. That's what you won't do.
He told Hitchens that he does not challenge the ability of an atheist to do moral good. In fact, he affirmed many of the moral criticisms that Hitchens makes in his book, God is Not Great. But he does challenge atheism on being able to give an accounting for morality. So the argument is not that atheists lack moral character any more than Christians. It's that Christians have an objective moral standard that is not changed by human opinion. Now, there's a bigger question of whether or not we are actually able to know that morality fully, but the point is that this is not a question of character, it is a question of epistemology. Let's move on to the next clip.
And without a moral center in our lives, and again, we're all sinners, we all fall. Without that moral center, what do you compare your behavior to?
I don't know. You use common sense. You don't need the Bible to give you any indication of what's good versus bad. Actually, it's probably better that people don't use the Bible to tell them what's good and bad because it says a lot of really bad shit in there. I'm pretty sure no one opens the Bible and sees the part where you're supposed to stone gay people and says, yes, that's what we need to do. People write it off and they're like, oh, that's not something we need to pay mind to. But think about what you just said. With what sense of morality do you look through the Bible and pick out what's good to listen to and throw out what's bad? The morality that people have is a direct reflection of the time that we live in the society that we were raised. All people do is sit around and cherry pick the parts out of the Bible that go along with what they already believe that has been set forth as a standard by society in modern day, and they're like, see, Bible lines up with it.
I'm gonna give Jaclyn some credit here because the church does tend to adapt to cultural values through a biblical lens. And there are a lot of cultural values that are accepted by the church that are not really biblical. But I am gonna disagree with her here because that's not how Christians understand the relationship between the Bible and morality. There are plenty of cultural values that have been accepted into moral standards that the church has not budged on. There are plenty of moral standards that Christians have not budged on that the culture has come to accept as morally good. Maybe the case could be a little stronger if she used a different example because stoning gay people is just... I feel like even as a critic, you have to be able to know the difference between the Old Covenant and the New Covenant. I think as a public figure, especially one that is criticizing public figures for misusing their platform, Jaclyn should be a little more attentive to the fact that Christianity is not cherry-picking morality, it's an exegetical process. But the point of this video is not to argue with JaclynGlenn on the areas where she was wrong. The point is to acknowledge the fact that she can be wrong in some areas, but is right about her main point. If we can't acknowledge that, and stop demonizing atheists at every chance that we get, then we are only contributing to the problem of modern apologetics. If we genuinely want to engage in truth-seeking discussions with these people, then we are going to have to realize that we are half of the problem. So stop demonizing atheists. And that's it for this video. If you thought this video was valuable, please like and share this video with your friends. Otherwise, thanks for watching, I hope to see you next week, and thanks for arguing with me.